Undercover CEO found a maid crying over an unpaid hospital bill. What happened next changed everything. The basement of the Grand Royal Hotel was a world beneath the glitter. Dim lights flickered above grimy tiles, casting shadows over spinning washers. The thrum of machinery echoed off damp walls, and the sharp scent of detergent hung in the air like a second skin. Upstairs, chandeliers sparkled over champagne flutes. Down here, among stained linens and silence, lived a different kind of truth, one of exhaustion, quiet struggle, and survival. Just 2 floors apart, 2 entirely different worlds. In the far corner of the laundry room, Linda sat curled against the wall, knees tucked to her chest. Only 26, but the hollow look in her eyes belonged to someone who had lived far too much pain. Blonde hair clung in strands around her pale face, dulled by sleepless nights and unrelenting labor. Her uniform hung loose, wrinkled, barely held together. The air buzzed with bleach and heat, but Linda did not move. She clutched a folded paper tightly to her chest, her fingers trembling. Her breath came shallow and tense, as if letting it out too quickly would make her unravel. It was a hospital bill. Her daughter, Judy, just 4 years old, had been born with a heart defect. Surgery was urgent. The cost was impossible. Linda had lost her parents in a car crash when she was 17. The man who promised forever left as soon as he learned she was pregnant. Since then, every step had been uphill. But this bill, it was a wall she could not scale. Hands shaking, she dialed the last number she had the courage to try. Her aunt. "Please," she whispered when the call connected. "Just a little help. Alone, Judy's surgery." Her aunt's voice was flat. "Linda, I've got my own kids. I can't keep helping you." "I'm not asking for much," Linda said, trying to hold herself steady. "Just enough to keep the surgery scheduled. I'll pay you back." "I'm sorry," her aunt said, "but I can't do this anymore." The line went dead. Linda stared at the phone. The silence rang louder than the machines. She did not cry, at least not at first. She simply sank further into herself. Her body began to tremble. "I'm sorry, Judy," she whispered. "Mommy's so sorry." Then the tears came. The bill lay across her lap, numbers glaring. $50,000. A warning printed in red. Payment required by Friday to confirm surgical scheduling. It was Tuesday. She crumpled the bill in her hands, then slowly smoothed it out again. Even now, she couldn't bring herself to tear it. It was the last thread of hope she had left. Just outside the laundry room, footsteps paused. A man in a Navy Moon maintenance uniform held a toolbox. He stopped mid-step, hearing muffled sobs behind the door. It was Michael Reeve, CEO of the luxury hotel chain, undercover again as Mike, a maintenance worker. He was here to evaluate staff and conditions before making decisions about the struggling property. He leaned closer, drawn by the sound. Through a small crack in the door, he saw her, a woman, small and still, clutching a piece of paper like it was all she had left. She didn't know anyone was watching. She wasn't asking for help. She was just breaking. Michael stood frozen. His job had always been about logic, structure, efficiency. But something about the quiet way she fell apart, without anger, without noise, got to him. She had no idea he was there. And still, she straightened herself, wiped her tears, adjusted her hair with trembling fingers, and stood tall like no one had seen her crumble. Michael turned and walked away, but he carried the image with him, her strength, her silence, her pain. That night, her voice echoed in his thoughts. "That was the first time I saw a woman cry. Not for herself, but for the tiny heart slowly fading inside her daughter's chest." Michael Reeve was 35 years old, and the kind of man people whispered about in boardrooms. Polished, calculated, decisive. The youngest CEO in the company's history. Years ago, when the hotel chain faced bankruptcy, it was Michael who made the impossible call. Downsizing departments, eliminating overhead, streamlining operations. It was not heartless. It was survival. And he had never apologized for saving thousands of jobs by letting go of hundreds. Efficiency, he believed, was not cruelty. It was clarity. Months flickered to life. Soft golden light filled the cramped space. Her eyes widened. The corners no longer felt so dark. Her mattress, her daughter's photo, everything looked warmer, less forgotten. On the floor near the door, she saw a folded note. She picked it up and read, "Light is something you should have." There was no signature, but she knew who it was from. Linda stood there silently, holding the note to her chest. Then, for the first time in what felt like forever, she smiled. Not a forced smile, not the kind she gave to guests or coworkers. A real one. In the days that followed, Michael, still Mike to everyone, began lingering after shifts. They'd sit on overturned crates in the break room, sipping chamomile tea from paper cups. During one of those late-night talks, with only the hum of the vending machine to fill the silence, Linda finally spoke from somewhere deep inside. Do you ever feel like no matter how much you give, it's never enough to protect the people you love? Michael paused. The fluorescent lights flickered above them. Yes, he said. I used to think love made people weak, that it blurred your judgment. He turned the cup in his hands. But now, I think love is what makes people strong enough to keep going when nothing else would. Linda stared at her tea. No one had ever said it like that. That night, she opened up in a way she never had before. Not just pieces, not fragments, but the truth. She told him about pawning her engagement ring to afford medication, skipping meals so Judy could eat. Nights spent outside emergency rooms, praying they'd accept her daughter without upfront payment. I was angry, she confessed, her voice trembling. Not just at life, but at myself, for never being enough. Michael reached out and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You are more than enough, he said. And the light, it's coming. I promise. She didn't reply, but her tears didn't burn like before. What Linda didn't know was that the next morning, Michael made a quiet phone call. Not as Mike, but as Michael Reeve. He contacted the Children's Hospital, asked for billing, and paid the deposit for Judy's surgery. No fanfare, no hotel affiliation, just a message. Tell the mother the surgery is confirmed. 3 days later, Linda stood at the hospital front desk, confusion clouding her face. I was calling to say I'm still trying to get the money, she told the nurse. I know I'm past the deadline, but if I could just get a little more time. The nurse offered a soft smile. Miss Reynolds, the payment was made. The surgery is scheduled. Linda froze. The words took time to register, but when they did, her knees nearly buckled. She left the hospital in a daze, then burst into a run, the air around her electric with joy. Hope surged in her chest like sunlight cracking through storm. Back at the hotel, she found Michael finishing a routine task near the service elevator. She ran to him. They're doing it, she breathed. The hospital said someone paid. Judy's going to get her surgery. Her voice broke. Her lips trembled. But her eyes shone. I don't know who, she began, then stopped. She looked at him. And though he didn't say a word, something in his gaze answered everything. She covered her mouth, trying to hold back the sob that escaped. For the first time in years, her tears fell not from sorrow, but from joy, relief, gratitude, hope. Michael stepped closer, reached out, and gently wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. No speeches, no big reveal, just a quiet moment between two people who had carried too much for too long, and at last let each other share the weight.